Mayor, you can proceed.
Very good. It is Monday, January 4th, 2021 in the afternoon. This is a virtual special budget meeting of the City of Rehoboth Mayor and Commissioners. I'd like to start off the meeting with a roll call. We've got Commissioner Dick Byrne.
Here.
Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Here.
And Mayor Stan Mills here. We have a quorum and are formally able to conduct the meeting in business. I would like to indicate that certain speakers have registered to be able to talk at the budget meeting, and we'll call on them certain times throughout the meeting. We have Richard Perry, Carol Everhart, Walter Brittingham, and Gary Glass. Thank you for registering in advance and your willingness to participate and give us input on this special budget meeting. With that, I'm actually going to turn the meeting over to Sharon Lynn, City Manager. This special meeting is to conduct a meeting on our budget for the upcoming year, including a capital improvement program. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sharon Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just a few items before we get into the proposed budget for the next fiscal year, FY22. We will provide you with a 9-month to date current fiscal year recap, and I'm hoping the mayor will permit us to put it on the February workshop. As we last reported to you in December, we'll give you an update in February for 2/3 of the way into the current fiscal year. So that will be April through December 2020. So as we normally do, we'll give you the up-to-date expense report and the projected revenue report up to date as well. At this point, I think we can see that the trends are what we predicted in December. We're still below what we expected, and obviously will be because the season is complete for parking, but we're improving with transfer tax as well as hotel tax. So we'll have all those numbers for you at the February workshop meeting. The current FY21-22 budget, projected budget, is balanced. I'm happy to say that we are reporting a balanced budget. And as we normally do each year, each revenue source was reviewed and compared to the prior year's budget, not just this year, but in the past. And projections were either increased or decreased based on historical data as well as logical assumptions. We're very conservative in those estimates, as we saw last year, or this year, I should say, and that has served us well. So in moving forward with some revenue projections, I will say that you're not seeing in the projected budget the sale of 84 Kent Street. That is not there yet. You'll see it in your next iteration of approximately $800,000 or $900,000 at the max. We don't want to get too high on that either. And the commissioners will certainly in the future decide where they want any of that revenue to be earmarked. I expect the property to be advertised for sale this Friday, and depending on where we are, because it's so close to March 31, whether it'll hit this current fiscal year's budget or next fiscal year's budget. And I would certainly recommend, again, on the conservative line, holding the funds in reserve until we tie out this year's budget and the commissioners have had a chance to speak directly to where they want those funds distributed and how they want to take place. So if you refer to page 1 of the fiscal year projected budget, which ends March 31, 2022, we have total revenues at $26,712,385, and that ties into our total operating and capital funds of $26,712,385. Next year's fiscal projected capital outlays include $4,898,670. And we're going to go through each one of those after we take any questions that the commissioners might have. But certainly the important piece of the CIP is to know that we withheld approximately $1,635,532 from this fiscal year and carried that over into next fiscal year, which we'll take a closer look at. There is a 2% salary increase projected in the 2022 budget for all non-uniformed employees. Certainly the police contract dictates the uniformed police officer salary, which is projected next year at 3.5%. It's the last year of the police contract. We'll be renegotiating that come September, starting in September. I hope you've all had a chance to look over the projections here, and I would entertain any questions or remarks that you might have at this time.
City Manager, what date are we looking at for the FY 2021 projection that's in the third column from the left, from the right? Was that as of what, December? What? Where those numbers come from?
That was a projection that was done just before Christmas, Jay. I think it was done on the 23rd.
Okay, so we're in the neighborhood with those.
Yes, sir. I mean, it's constantly changing, but I mean, as of that point in time, which is the 23rd of December, that's what we did.
Okay. Thanks.
And again, as I said, we'll have a better report for you at the workshop meeting in February.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sharon, just to clarify though, the year-to-date actual then is through November?
Now, the year-to-date actual was whatever I had at the time, so it could have included beyond November.
Okay.
I mean, it changes every day, so when I prepared this, I just pulled what I had on the books at that time.
Okay.
So it some of it goes, it goes in November. And maybe some of December.
Oh, okay. But what we're going to see in February would be full December.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And what about January? Will we see January when we have the report in February?
No.
Okay.
So it takes about January won't be available probably until the third week of February, so we wouldn't be coming back to you with that until the workshop meeting in March, at which point we'll have at least our 5th budget meeting, and we'll be wrapping things up by then. But we'll certainly have a good idea.
Okay.
So can we quickly go page by page? I know it may be cumbersome, but that way we cover everything in one shot.
Could I say something?
Page
Bert,
1.
We really appreciate what you did. This is a great explanation. Sorry, Stan, go forward.
No, that's good. They deserve a compliment. Again, if everybody would speak up so that, but let's go through methodically, if you don't mind. Page 1, if there's no questions. Page 2. You know, I do notice that what I put optimistic on some of these numbers, you know, in other words, for income, that, you know, not knowing what the COVID crisis is going to do to us, that it could be that the income figures are less and the expenditures are less. So that's just a personal note to me. I think we'll talk about the capital improvements separately, so we don't need to talk about them on this page. Anybody have comments? Page 3.
I mean, we have them down by department, obviously. So you'll see up at the top of each page,
Right.
you know, the specific department, and their expenses and salaries and workers' compensation and the tie-ins for the CIP. Basically, you know, in meeting with each department head this year, they were very fiscally responsible, knowing that we're in a bind, not just this current fiscal year, but projecting into next year. So the department heads did a great job in holding back and being very conservative and just thinking thoughtfully, if you will, about their own projections for the departments.
Very
Certainly
good.
some changes were made, but for the most part, you know, these are responsible numbers that were well thought out.
Sharon, on page 3, under summary of expenditures, about 6 lines down, it says total public works capital unbud. What is that line?
Unbudgeted.
Yeah.
Unbudgeted.
Unbudgeted.
I have a question if I could, and I guess I'm backtracking just a little bit, but the revenue figures for the general fund, is there a breakdown somewhere for that? How that?
Yeah, the revenue figures start on page 4.
Right.
Page 4 is a recap.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's what I needed. Thank you.
So shall we go to page 4 then? That's where all the biggies are. Property taxes, transfer taxes. The convention hall rentals is one of those I put down as optimistic. You know, that if the worst case scenario is we don't have any rentals for the next year, and the best case is we exceed what your projection is. So I appreciate you being cautious on a lot of this.
Well, we're very conservative, as I said. If you'll take a look at the hotel accommodation tax, you see we're projecting $750,000 for this fiscal year. The budgeted amount was $800. You'll recall that we increased that number just a bit in this current fiscal year to for alignment purposes, but also the commissioners at that time wanted, you know, to make a little heftier determination. This is the first year of that number, so we were being conservative, and I think 800,000 served us well. We're projecting a little more than that for next year at $1 million, because hopefully we'll have a more, not normal season, but at least getting back to normal. Rental tax projections are basically the same. And as you go through down the line, you can look at what's budgeted for this year and for next year.
I noticed that there's a reinspection fee. We budgeted $800 for reinspection fee. I was looking at another town and they charge $2,000 for reinspection fee. Now, I think that's kind of outrageous, but it lends for me the question for all our services, building permits, water meter replacement, Board of Adjustment, Alderman Court, wireless permits. Are we charging enough to cover the expenses for all these things? Or are we giving some of it away? I would just wonder if it's time to take a year to do an analysis and make sure that we're charging the right amount.
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. And Mr. Molina brought that up at least 3 years ago, and we should really take a look at that. You know, when you feel it's timely to do so, but building and licensing permit fees and all of our fees, we should really take a look at. We did that, you'll recall, with business license, mercantile fees. Probably it's been 5 years now, so we can take a look at all of those again.
Yeah, I mean, sewer connections and inspections, all those things, business license. Believe it or not, I'm still getting complaints from constituents that say they get a business license for $75 and they get a $200 free parking permit. So, Pat, I don't know if S&T wants to look into something like that or not, but it's funny that they would complain and are willing to pay more for it.
One of the thoughts on these fees, Mayor, is that they should be adjusted at a level that covers cost of performing that service, as opposed to being a revenue item like property taxes or something else. So I was always under the impression that that was the policy, to set the rate at what it costs to perform those services.
Gord, I agree with that. I'm just not comfortable that we are covering service costs. That's my question. You know, I don't believe
Fair
that
enough.
any of these should be a profit center, for instance. But I think we should carry our costs. And there's things. Board of Adjustment costs are going up each year, and they're getting more complicated. And planning commission things with all these, you know, needing lawyers on this side, that side. And anyhow, I just think it's an opportunity that we should start now so that we're ready for, if not some low-hanging fruit for this year, then everything for next year.
Mayor, so can we look at the bus permits as a part of that? We've talked about this in the past about increasing that amount, because we've only got, I believe, what, $1,000 for the budget. I think that's something we could look at as a profit center, much like property taxes.
Well, maybe as because each chair of a committee is now a commissioner, maybe each commissioner takes a look at through the eyes of their committees to see what recommendations they might have in the budget. You know, the S&T might have recommendations on the bus permit, or if not the committee, at least you through that lens could make that recommendation. I don't know how many bus permits are issued a year. Does anybody know that?
This year we had very few. So
I bet.
Even in previous years, 2019 was 2,000, 2020, 1,600, and then our budget for this year is 1,000.
Well, we can give you an accounting of that, certainly.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I would like to know what we're charging for bus permits. I have a feeling that it's a lot lower than it should be. And I'm assuming, just based on what I'm looking at here, you've made no increase in property taxes.
That's correct. We wouldn't do that without the commissioners weighing in.
Okay, so a couple of years ago, we had a large tax increase, but I think that maybe we should be looking at increase in taxes, smaller amounts over a period of time. I do believe that the taxes in the city are very, very low, and that we should be looking at that in terms of services that our constituents get. So I
So
don't know
you
how
mi-
the rest of the commissioners feel, but I think that we don't want to go for years without doing tax increases and then
Well-
have to do a big tax increase.
Well, Commissioner Cluzzi, I think you brought that up last year or the year before when I was a commissioner, and I agree with you that I think it's better to do raise taxes incrementally than to wait too long and do a huge increase.
If I,
But we need analysis of what are our property owners paying for that is increasing in cost that demands that property taxes be increased. Commissioner Gossett, you had a,
yeah, I I don't disagree on the tax issue to be investigated, pardon me, but that is just one part of the formula to come to revenue. The other part is property assessment. We did a property assessment about 5 years ago. That was the first time in almost 30 years that it was done. I would think that if we were to, and I'd be happy to take this on, investigate property reassessments on a rolling basis. We primarily have 5 distinct neighborhoods within the community. And if we were to reassess one of those neighborhoods every year so that it's not a cumbersome impact of, all, I think we have 2,300 property listings in the neighborhood, so that we stay up to date on assessments along with the actual percentage of tax increase. It is a formula that happens. They both feed into the aspect of our total revenue anticipated.
I think that's a good idea, and I do agree with that. But I would think that we would try to do everything at once, given that it probably, from a cost perspective, to have somebody come do the assessments might be, more expensive if you do it on a yearly basis. I think it would make more sense. I don't think that's too many properties to assess, but
The last time that the assessment was done, it was based, the cost was based on a per property. So whether you base it on 10 a year or 1,000 a year, there is no issue of buying more if they don't discount for the more you do, because it still takes the amount of time and energy and data input per property. So I think that having the experience of doing that, I think that's one thing that we need to seriously look at.
I think that was done in 2014, right? So it's been 7 years, just about.
7 years.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think the assessment is the first thing that ought to be looked at before any kind of percent increase. So I would agree.
We just raised their taxes 50% year before last. They all remember that. We just swapped everybody with utility rate increases. Most of the residential people saw at least 100% increase in their water and sewer when you start calculating exactly how much they received. Folks all remember that, and we need to be really careful before we slap significant increases. And we will be, I'm sure. My problem is the sewer impact fee. When you compare it with Sussex County, we are like, what is the sewer impact fee right now, Bert?
It's a lot less than the county, because the county's about $6,000, I think, to.
The last I heard, the county was 6,300.
Yeah.
And that's a whopper. But yeah, and if we get a stormwater management program started, we're going to need to think about impact fees for homes that suddenly have huge roofs and have a lot of downspout water, and that has to go somewhere. So that needs to be somewhere in the back of our mind. but I'm really reluctant to do a tax increase. And as you remember, we have a 4-year smoothing rate on our utilities. So that's probably going to be staring us in the face in FY 2024. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I used to be the property tax assessor in Rehoboth Beach, and we used to do it in-house. And when I took it over, it was at a time when it hadn't been done for several years, so we had a backlog to do. Now, of course, we have an outside agency, and then I understand the outside agency somehow disintegrated. What is the status now of our assessor? Do we have an outside agency? Are they up to date? Because I noticed in the budget where it says assessor, there's only like a figure of $2,000 in there. That seems ridiculously low. Can you give us some highlights there, Sharon or Bert?
Well, we did, after the company that we're referring to from 2014 was unresponsive for a period of time. Some of the commissioners might recall that we appointed a temporary assessor, and then since that time, we have contracted with another assessor who's basically from building permits and additions is actually doing the reassessment, at least from the partial renovations of properties. So if you can point us to what you're referring to, the $2,000, we might be able to, we're looking for it now.
Somewhere in there, there's an expense for maybe treasurer and assessors. I can't remember. I'll look for it later.
Okay.
It's on page 35. That really just includes the cost of the treasurer. There's no assessor cost in that. That would be built into the general fund budget in the total revenue section in the front.
The assessor.
Yes.
That's right. That department was always called treasurer and assessors, but we never really had any expense for assessors. So I felt that, I mean, at least in that department. So I felt it was better just to call it treasurer. And
Well, then it might be appropriate to delete and assessor or something. Do you know how much are we paying that assessor?
well, that's
It comes in, basically, I think on a quarterly basis now. So we haven't had him for a long time now, for I think at least 6 months. So I don't know where that figure is, Bert.
we'll probably just put it in the admin section for any kind of assessments. Professional services would probably be, might cover some of that. As far as the person who paid, I have to look and see what I was charged.
We'll get back to you on that.
All right, thank you.
Going back to page 4.
I do think we ought to look at impact fees, and hearing how much lower we are than the county. I mean, given all the development that's going on, both residential and commercial, we really have to look at that.
Yeah. I've only been saying that for 3 years.
Yeah, I think I said it last year.
Could I ask a question about tennis courts? I get more complaints on tennis courts. We have a group of people who love the tennis courts. I see for FY 2019, we had 10.5 and then 11 on 2020. We went to 11,160 on, and then this year we're down to 5,000. How are those funds? How do we get them, and how do we count them?
Well, what happened on that is in past years, the tennis and recreation department, staffed people to collect the tennis fees for people to play tennis. And we've been watching this for years, and essentially the fees that we've been receiving were often less than the cost of paying these people to run this department. So the city manager contacted the owner of the plantations and made an arrangement so that we essentially share in the profit. So while the number's lower, it's actually a better arrangement because we don't have any costs associated with running it. And even like small cracks on the tennis court, they're taking care of all that. So until we have to do a major resurface, we're not really going to have any costs. We're just going to share the profit.
So what I can say then is the money you're paying to reserve a court is actually benefits the city more than the money you used to pay for reserving a court, even though you're paying the same amount.
Well, that's right. And we let the operator essentially subcontracted the tennis court operation out to a professional. And I think they can actually offer the citizens a better arrangement because they have clinics down there and they're doing things that we never did before. Essentially, we just manned a booth and collected money. It cost us more money to collect it than we'd gotten revenue.
So we broke even this year. So we did. We broke even this year, and we probably didn't spend another $10,000 in staffing costs.
I think the people believe they have better service now than they did before. The tennis players, they're just.
Well, I hope so. Yes.
Well, the only thing of it is you're probably going to have more activity. So that if they have a complaint, it'll be the fact that they have to compete for time.
Yes,
But
they've been doing that.
That's just how it goes.
They've been doing that also. But if I can explain it, it'll be a lot better. Just explaining it makes a difference. So the money they're giving is actually benefiting us more than the same amount they used to pay.
Yeah, we have the comparative numbers on that line item are a little misleading because it looks like the revenues dropped off. Well, truth of it is what we report now in revenue is pure profit.
Yeah, I hear you. The expenses didn't drop off. Well, yeah.
We unloaded the expenses to them.
Okay, I think you've answered my question. I'll just, that's the way it is. And they can figure it out. On a side topic, how does the elementary school handle their brand new tennis courts? Does anybody know?
They put a lock on the gate.
Yeah.
Just first come, first served?
Yeah.
I'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay, that's been my observation. I go by there once or twice a day on a dog walk. And it appears it's first come, first served for both the tennis courts and the heavily used pickleball courts that are there now.
Dick, do you see people waiting, or are they usually?
No, I haven't seen people waiting, but I see them used frequently.
That may be a great alternative. Thank you.
Right.
Everybody.
Along with the basketball court that's been heavily used now.
Anybody have further questions on page 4?
I do, Mayor. Sharon, the lease of property, I think for the new budget year, it's $112,000. Is that just for 306 Rehoboth Avenue, or does that include other properties as well?
Well, that's others, right?
It includes the property where Snyder's Candy is as well. City owns the ground,
Right.
and the Rogers family owns the building. So we have an agreement to receive ground rent. So that's a component, as is the 306 Rehoboth Avenue. And then there are other small leases that were very, just small amounts that are in there too. But the two main components are the Snyder's Candy Building and 306 Rehoboth Avenue.
All right, thank you.
Does that include the VIA and the railway folks?
All of those. I mean, we gave an accounting of that in the previous administration, maybe a year and a half or so ago. We can pull that out again or send it to you.
That would be
But-
helpful. Thank
That
you.
would be good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Just take a note of them.
Mhm.
Anything else on page 4? We'll go to page 5. Six. About 7.
That's it.
So page 8.
A question on street aid. Is that a fixed amount that we received on a percentage basis from the state or the county, or how is that actually determined?
Well, every year they send us a report to complete to indicate what the number of road miles are in the city. That doesn't change really. And so we receive 2 payments from the state and every year. And the budget is basically those payments are budgeted about $156,000 a payment. So, and that money is basically has always been used to basically pay the electric bills, which is appropriate. I mean, it's allowed. This is restricted money, so
Right.
we are allowed to use it to pay the electric bill, streetlights.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Dan, could you do me a favor?
Yeah,
When we turn, I have filed all of my reports according to departments. Would you say where you are on the second line? It'll say expenditures, mayor and commissioners, or it'll say IT,
yeah.
FY 2022. That'll let me find them.
You don't have page numbers at the bottom?
No, I filed them according to where the departments.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll
And
identify.
I'll change back after this meeting.
That's all right. Page 9 is Revenue Municipal Street Aid Fund.
Got it.
Actually, I apologize for that. That is not labeled correctly. That is really the police fund and
Police grants.
police grants.
Under grants.
Page 9.
Yeah, the Edie and the Sally grants are all police grants.
Yeah, and the title on there is my fault. It was labeled municipal street aid. It should have been saying police grant.
You guys just go ahead. I think I know this pretty well. I'll just get it by numbers on the next meeting.
Well, Jay, page 10 is expenditures, budget administration FY 2022.
But just a question. I've noticed a jump in the maintenance contracts. Is that we're expanding or an addition, or is that because of COVID or what?
The maintenance contract that we have here for the building increases each year by I think it's 2 or 3%. We just got that maintenance contract. And then others are contracted. You'll recall that we started out with a $50,000 figure for that when we opened the building. And that increased them 2% each year.
And do we have any policies in place about rebidding contracts every few years, or are they always rebid, or what is our policy?
No, they're not always rebid. I mean,
Okay.
unless there's a concern with them, we don't really see a service need to do that.
Okay,
I mean,
thank
we
you.
couldn't wait 10 years, of course, but for right now, we're still in the beginning of it.
In the middle of page 10, that's the expenditures budget administration line items 510700. I'm going to talk about the next 6 of them. Board of Adjustment. Are these largely legal fees?
Yes. Yes, they are.
Okay, so legal fees, planning commission's legal fees.
Legal and
Yes.
reporting, right? Because there's now a reporter taking, no, that's
That's
included.
right. Any costs associated with that, but you're right, Mayor, most of it's legal fees, but there are other costs.
Now, the CDP professional services, Debbie's work is going into the upcoming budget year, and there's no monies budgeted for her. Is that why is that?
They're broken out in
Other professional
other professional, so
contracts, yeah.
511, 500.
There's
Okay,
no numbers.
which is four below that one.
We'll reevaluate that too, just to check to make sure that we have captured that in there. I think we have, but it's worth a double check.
And just, what is transfer tax transfer?
The county collects the transfer tax and they keep 1% of the total that we get. So we get 400,000, they get 1% of that.
And then contractual services right under that, 106,000. Is that specific to what?
There are a lot of things in there. I'd have to, go back and look at actually what the past history's been in there, but it's not just one item. It would be any kind of service that we contract with to perform anything.
What's your guess? Restroom facility maintenance, this building, city administration maintenance?
No, it would be anything like any kind of, repair on the building that's not covered by maintenance, or it could be, we can give you a sampling of what's happened, but I mean, it doesn't include the maintenance of the building. It just includes the any kind of service related to maintaining the building.
Now, under Board of Adjustment Planning Commission, you said that includes legal expenses as well as others. Where do we find legal expenses for holiday displays and Baymart and things like that? Is there a line item for those?
They're usually in, well, Baymart is either in the mayor commissioners or in the planning commission line item.
That's on page 25, Stan. $200,000 for the mayor and commissioners.
Legal services, okay, gotcha. All right. I notice under conferences and training for 12,000, I'm a big fan of education for all our employees, and including commissioners and committee members if need be. So I appreciate seeing that in there.
City manager?
Yes.
Also on page 10 still, which is the the administration. It looks like the retired employee benefits doubles from, just under 51,000 to 102,000. What's the reason for such a drastic jump in that?
More people have retired, and it's increasing. What you'll see in our annual report, that we have an item called OPEB, other post-employment costs, and we have an actuary that actually figures that, and it appears that he's right, because it is increasing, and we can identify, the specific people that are receiving those benefits. But based upon recent retirements, we had 2 people in the water department. One in the water department and another in the wastewater department, and that retired. So as the number of retirees increase, that cost burden is going to increase, and it may be something the commissioners have to evaluate at some point in time.
Well, and I will add that our liability for that is very low. For the average municipality that I've worked in, the city's liability for OPEB is very low.
Yep.
Sharon, when a few years back, when we did the for lack of a better word, I think it was a compensation study for the employees. Did they also take a look at post-retirement benefits, benefits in general, other types of things like that?
Well, we actually did that. You're correct. A compensation and classification study that was done, looking at it from the perspective of what other municipalities offer. So we're right there with we're in line, I should say, with what other municipalities in Sussex County offer.
But the OPEB piece, that's basically an actuarial study. They receive our census list, so they're looking at the ages of the employees. They're making projections on how many are going to retire and when. So that OPEB thing isn't something that we just pull out. It's based on an actuarial study.
And I know some of the commissioners and the mayor will recall that, we have attrition was very important, and a very important factor for me to look at when I first came on. And that's why I'm hiring young people like Mr. Miller.
I'm getting rid of people like me.
She didn't say that out loud.
You'll recall that, Commissioner Gossett?
I certainly do. Certainly do. And I'm very glad that we were able to accomplish the comp study, because it gives us great guidelines and makes us competitive in the market, so that we can attract the young people.
Yes.
Can I ask a question related? What is the percentage of employees and salaries in the wastewater department that are contractual, or how are we handling that? How many full-time employees do we have there now who are funded by us? I see it's something like 600 and some thousand, but 614. How do we figure that?
They're all funded by the city. We don't have any county employees any longer.
Okay, so how many employees do we have who are full-time employees from the city out there?
13.
13.
13. Okay, great. And are you looking for more? Are we stable, or what's the outlook?
We're stable right now. We're not looking for any.
Okay, that's great. That's great. That tells me what I need to know.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to page 11. J is expenditures budget alderman.
Thanks, Dan.
Is the alderman a position where it pays for itself, at least break even?
Probably not. I mean, it depends on the amount of fines and, fines collected, but, I would say no.
I thought when I checked, it was close. Maybe not.
It's close, yes.
Apologies. Can I back up a step? I'm a little slow today.
Oh, where do you want to go?
Just one page back on the, because you had asked a question about the, the planning commission and where were the CDP professional services and the fact that Debbie was continuing. And I think, Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, did you say some of that is in the other professional services?
Yes.
But that's budgeted next year at 50,000. So I thought that the 50,000 was going to cover the Baltimore Wilmington Avenue streetscape concept that's out for RFP right now. Is that not what that is?
No, that's not where that is.
Where is that?
Is it in the engineering,
No, I'm sorry,
In
streets
another
engineering.
department?
streets?
It's under street. Okay, that's fine. We'll get to it. I just wondered. Okay.
Back to page 11. My recollection was I don't know, page 12, expenditures, budget, building and grounds. I have a question on their capital budget, but we can save that and do them all at the same time.
Okay.
On page 13 is expenditures, budget, building and licensing. What kind of things are we subcontracting or outside of the building and licensing office? We've got engineering budgeted for 10,000 and contractual services or lease for 5,000, other professional services, 5,000.
Well, engineering would be what we pay to an engineering firm, but the contractual services and lease, it's a $5,000 item. I'd have to look in there and say what the past history is that, that we've had in that category.
You able to pull that, Devin, on your computer? Yes.
Well, in the old days, I know we used to subcontract electrical inspections. I don't know what we do today, and other outside agencies would come in. I was just kind of inquiring how much are we doing in-house now versus in the past, and exactly what are we contracting for on the outside?
Well, we don't have anything actual in 2021 in that on that line, contractual services. We had $2,655 in 2019.
Yeah,
We
we
don't
did-
contract anything. Everyone is certified to do that in-house.
So we've come on board for most things then.
Yes.
That's great. How do we work the legal services? Does Glenn parse out his invoices?
Yes.
Okay. So this 35,000 is probably all mostly Mr. Mandela's.
Yes.
Okay.
So that would not be specific to Board of Adjustment. It's more specific to building and licensing,
No.
just
Correct.
conferring with them on legal issues. Question mark.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Okay.
And is the Board of Adjustments done the same way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He splits out his monthly invoices
I hear you.
with departments. The highest being the mayor and commissioners.
Okay.
We got page 14, expenditures, budget bandstand.
Oh, Mayor, if we could, just one more question on building and licensing. It looks like the auto leases, amount is doubling. We have the same number of employees and the same functions. Why would that number be doubling?
So that reason, Commissioner, would be that we are in the process now of replacing out our aging fleet. So in years past, we've done typically 7 vehicles a year, and that involves replacing vehicles that are maybe late 2000s, and have gotten to the point where the city mechanic has basically said that we're spending too much money in repairs for those particular vehicles. So every year we sort of take a look at our fleet list, and we're aging out the oldest and most expensive to maintain those vehicles and replacing those with ones that are very similar. We have not gotten to the point where we've had additional vehicles to the fleet. They've all just been replacements at this point.
So they share vehicles.
All right, thank you.
While we're on 13, the building and licensing salaries went up about 45,000. Are we adding a new person or?
No, we're replacing. So we did add a code enforcement individual to this was all planned for Mr. Molina's retirement in this current year's budget. And we did hire Mr. Rothstein at an earlier time so we could be prepared for the September onslaught of building permits. And Mr. Rothstein, hired in May, would have some extra time to learn the code enforcement job while Mr. Jenny was being certified in building inspection. So that all has happened. And of course, we'll be looking at the future, but there's no extra additional people. There's only in replacement. So there were some salary increases because Mr. Janice went from building inspector to the chief building inspector. Mr. Jenny also stepped up, and that's how we figure that in.
Very good, thank you. Page 14 is the bandstand expenses. Again, if COVID doesn't leave us and we have a poor summer, then some of that expenditures would be changed. Page 15 is Rehoboth Beach Patrol expenditures.
And that's basically in line with, prior years. We'll, of course, take another look at that as we have a new beach patrol captain come on board, and we'll review all of that.
All right. Page 16 is expenditures for the comfort stations.
Again, pretty much on target except for the capital outlay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Page 17 is expenditures for communications.
We were able to decrease that just a bit due to advertising costs. So again, pretty much in line with what we've had.
And this is referring to the communications department, which is Chris Johnson. Is that true?
Correct.
Very good. Thank you.
Evan, I want to ask you to do me a favor, okay? When you decide to retire the old trash truck that burns gasoline, let me know. I want to bring a rose and put a rose on the hood, whatever day you decide to decommission it. Just keep me in mind.
Page 17, page 18, contributions. This is one, Sharon, where for the next meeting, I would like to have the letters of request. I know you and I met with the library folks several months ago. I don't recall if they submitted a letter at that time or not, but I think all the agencies that request money, we ought to have a copy of their request. I know that the fire, we have a set amount for the volunteer fire company, but it's nice to have them ask. And they were, I think it was in their last report that they made their ask. But all the other agencies, we don't have any information. Also, in the past, somebody can refresh my memory, in the past, specific to Main Street, we asked for certain financials. So we could get at least minimally a summary and optimally a more detailed accounting of how they spend our money, which is our taxpayer money.
We will email, if that's okay with you, copies of the specific letters.
Is it
Thank you.
possible also to ask as a recap of how they have invested the money that we have contributed them over the past 12 months?
You talking
Or
about
you
Main
mean-
Street?
I'm talking about all donations, contributions, just that, we've got a little over $200,000 of contributions that we supply, but I'd just be interested to know how those funds are spent over the past 12 months, of how those funds are utilized.
I think that would be a good idea and very doable. Yeah.
I don't need a dollar for dollar, but just in areas of investment or areas that the city, I don't use the word profited, but how they've reinvested our taxpayer monies into the city to keep those programs going forward.
Right.
Yeah, Commissioner, we pull the tax returns of these organizations. They're 990s.
Right.
And
but
they're not
usually a couple years in lagging, aren't
They're
they?
not. Yeah, they're a couple years behind just because we could request them directly from the organizations, but we pull them off a GuideStar, which is it's a service you may be familiar with, but
Yeah.
so we don't have the current years, but we could request that. But we do have 990s, I think, through probably 2019 for each of the organizations.
Yeah, I've gone back and pulled them myself, but again, they're either 2 or 3 years in arrears on GuideStar. So if you could request the current ones, their current filing, that would be great.
Yeah.
We'll get that through.
Also, are the letters that you're going to be sending, are the requests that they've made consistent with what's budgeted in fiscal 20? Have they made their requests already for next fiscal year, or are these amounts just based on history and they may ask for more or less?
These are the amounts they requested.
They've already officially requested these amounts. Okay.
Now this 990 information will that augment an individual report that we normally get from Main Street? So we're getting two different things?
Well, truthfully, if you probably requested their financial statements, they probably would be less consolidated. When you look at the 990s, a lot of those numbers are consolidated into, one line item, but you probably get a little more information if we requested them to report to us.
Well, I'd like more specificity, I think.
Mayor,
Right.
I can only speak on behalf of Main Street. I don't know about the other organizations, but I know Main Street in the past has provided actual financial statements and the actual budget, both years past actual and the upcoming year's budget. So I know Main Street has that and is prepared to provide it. I'm not sure about the other organizations though.
But I
Well,
think we got.
I think it's very reasonable to request.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just what the commissioner said Main Street is doing.
I think last year we got the Main Street one after we had already determined the amount because it was made the request was made at a meeting. And that actually brings up my question, which is, I know last year, I think maybe the year before you all did this too, the organizations came in and
Right.
addressed, what their request and why they were requesting it and answered any questions. Do we want to do that, or do we want to just ask them to provide their financials and we'll discuss it among ourselves?
They
Well-
probably all have a statement of net assets if they are a tax exempt organization, which tells you a lot.
Well, we've never asked for financials of the fire department, for instance. So, and I'm fine with that, but I do like what Commissioner Gossett suggested is let's getting a broad accounting of how they use the funds in the last year. I'd be curious how much was used in town for purchases, and if any was used for out of town. Last year they're liable to have a inventory to share with us that they bought an ATV, or they bought 10 backpacks or new face masks or something like that, or it went to their new vehicle they're wanting. Because my recollection was that when we boosted the amount to 100,000, I don't know if we put conditions on it or not, but my recollection is we said the money needs to primarily focus on the downtown area. Not all go out of town. Okay, anything else on contributions? I mean, do you want to look at the amount? I think the conversation would be better after we get their letters and look at their accounting of what they've done in the last year.
What's a reasonable time frame for that? We wouldn't have it for next Friday, right?
I'm gonna send them to you. I have them all now. At least I have the letters. Some of them might have what you're looking for. But we'll ask them, today, and we can have them, send it to us, at least for the next budget meeting next Friday, possibly.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Well,
Yeah.
if they can, and for the budget meeting during the regular meeting is fine with that on the 15th, but I'm also comfortable with them providing that information by the February special board budget meeting.
And to address Commissioner Gay, did you want the individual executive directors on the call with you at some point or not?
I personally find it helpful to be able to ask questions.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Well,
we'll ask them to be on next
think so,
Friday,
too.
if not the February 1st budget meeting.
That would be good to invite all of them. We've done that in the past, I believe, and it was, I believe, a good opportunity for a Q&A.
It would be nice to have their numbers in front of you when we ask them questions.
That would be a requisite, I believe. Thank you, Jay. Yeah. So we're gonna punt down the road the contributions. Page 19 is expenditures, general fund debt service. Page 19 is budget dispatch. Page 21 is Department of Justice Byrne grant. Dick Byrne, tell us about that.
Absolutely no relationship.
And there's no money.
There's no way.
All right, 2022 is DUI salaries
I
grant.
have a question on 20. I'm sorry, I was muted.
That's all right.
So, for the dispatch, we don't have revenue that offsets this, do we?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Well,
Do we have
yeah,
revenue that offsets some of the dispatch?
well, we get the 9/11 grant. That's money that is passed through the county to the municipalities.
Uh-huh.
And that number is that money is actually collected on your phone bills. So I've always questioned, it's gotten more complicated over the years because of cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how the county could do a better job, but we always kind of suspected that we're growing faster here than a lot of other areas, and that allocation should be reconsidered. But I don't think the county's heard that yet.
So what's the allocation that we get for 9/11?
From the 9/11, it's on the revenue section on page, starting on page 4. You'll see 9/11, I'm sorry, page 5. 9/11 emergency grant, 45,000.
Okay, so that's really a small amount compared to what we
Yeah.
said.
Virtually nothing compared to what it costs to run the department.
And Bert, is that allocation determined on a county level or a state level?
A county level, I think the chief has been in contact with them and expressed his concern, but I don't think the county's really too anxious to go ahead and change their allocation practice, because what they give us, they're gonna have to take from somebody else. So, I don't know, for 45,000, I mean, I don't know that we get that much more. I really don't know. I think Chief Banks could probably provide a little more insight on how that process works.
Chief, are you on the line?
I am. Thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, and general public. Yeah, I don't have a lot more to add to that. Bert kind of summed it up. Years ago, way before my time, I know it was under Mayor Cooper, I believe, and County Commissioner, I think was Bob Stickles, is when this first started, and they came up with some kind of figure as far as with landlines, how much would come from 911. The money's actually come to the county, and then the county distributes it. So they kind of earmark how much money per phone. And obviously there's a lot more cell phones than landline now. So I'm not sure how they're equating that now. But I think it's definitely worth a conversation. A lot of that money, so, it's only 45,000 hits our maintenance contracts. We use it for travel and keep up with the training that we may not be able to afford to send someone ahead of time. So a lot of that and line items that we present to the city manager, we'll sit there and break that out, which goes to the 911 funds. But yes, I think it's probably a bigger picture down the road to take a look at it and have a sit down with the county administrator and see if there's anything we can do.
All right, any other questions on dispatch? We'll go to 21, which is the, burn grant. 22 is the DUI salaries grant. 23 is the ED grant salaries. 24 is IT budget expenditures.
Mayor, I have a question on this one, and Sharon's out of the room, but I'll ask anyway, and we can go back to it. We spend probably about $50,000 on cell phones for employees. And
I don't know what that is. Go ahead.
And my question is, I guess for the city manager or for Max, have we ever looked at doing a cell phone allowance where we'd give each employee $100 or something to use their personal cell phone rather than buying cell phones for everyone? I know a lot of companies will do that now. They do cell phone allowance where you give employees money instead of having an extra cell phone for them, a work cell phone. I just wondered if that's something we considered or talked about at
all. Go ahead and repeat your question there. Sharon just came into the room. Ed.
Sharon, my question was, we budget about $50,000 for cell phones for employees, and whether we've ever looked at doing more of a cell phone allowance where each employee gets a fixed amount of money to use their personal cell phones rather than having the additional expense.
As far as I know, since my time, we have not looked at that.
Okay,
It
thank
seems
you.
like it might be a good idea, because this is not the only place. That's just, I gather that's just $50,000 for IT.
No. Each department now comes under IT. Max, do you have anything to add to that? But it's all the cell phone distributions are under the IT department.
Because under
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, the police have their own, I guess, yeah. Mhm.
Actually, we manage the mobile devices, device plans for the entire city. It's basically a little bit easier for us to maintain and coordinate everything with it under one roof, so to speak. So we did initially look at trying to do an allocation to use your own cell phone, but the previous administration wasn't interested in that. So it just, at that time, we moved on. But that's not just cell phones, that's data plans for our cradle point devices, it's mobile device data plans for the vehicles, et cetera, not just cell phones.
So Max, would you say that the cost savings in and of itself is done on an annual basis just by what you do with the vendors?
Yes, ma'am, and we kind of run a tight ship. So because we manage it, we're suspending phones as people leave, or for example, our parking operations as they go, off season, we suspend those accounts. So we're budgeting that in order to take advantage of all those scenarios.
Thank you, Max.
I certainly am satisfied with that answer.
I've got a couple things that I'll just talk with Sharon directly about, but I'd like to expand seatings for committees and prospective additional microphones for the commissioner's room at some point. I'll get together with you, Sharon, and articulate that. If there's nothing else, what? If there's nothing else in IT department, then we'll go to page 25, which is the mayor and commissioners. I see our salaries remain static.
I don't see our retirement benefits.
Oh, that's right.
Sharon, is there a reason why we have to be paid?
Well, I don't think I know that there was a request in prior years to not be paid, and I mean, you can certainly yourselves decide to contribute that amount or, pass that on. But that's pretty much agreed upon.
I'll reread the charter, but I believe that the distinguish is elected officials are compensated and appointed officials are non-compensated as the charter reads. I'll double check that and get back to you, but I think that's where the distinguishing period is.
Yep.
And I think Bethany Beach and Lewis recently increased their salaries for their elected officials.
I tried that, but it didn't work. What happens is when they cut a check, it automatically generates a 1099 for your tax year. And I was a Texas resident, but I was having to pay state tax to Delaware, and for that whopping amount, and it's a real hassle. I wish you could donate your salary, but now that I'm a Delaware resident, big deal. Doesn't matter that much. But that's what I tried to do. I talked to Margaret, said, could I donate my salary and not get a 1099? And the answer was no. Probably for good reason.
Very good. Page 26 is expenditures, parking permits.
Just a question. There's nothing projected there, as I can see it, for 22 for tickets and permits. Is that?
We usually account for all those costs within the parking meter department.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is a separate category. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Page 27 is parks.
Just curious on, we have an engineering expense there for the coming year. Is that a rollover?
Um,
30,000.
what,
Rain garden, she wanted to do a rain garden.
what line are you looking at? Sorry.
Engineering 511000 for 30,000. It's in 21's budget, also 22 budget. Is that just a rollover of what project?
I believe that is, for, there's a design cost involved in the parks that you'll see in the CIP for
Okay.
the, playground,
Yeah.
accessible playground. And, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And there's also, I have to get this right. It's the, we're doing a bathymetrical engineering design for Lake Zuror, involved with the accretion that we have $53,000 in the CIP for. So before we look at the accretion, we need to test the levels specifically related to residual amounts and other sources. So there's part of that in an engineering fee.
Thank you.
Bathymetrical.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
And Sharon, I will probably want to sit down and talk with you and Liz about some of these rather than going on in detail here, but the various tree budgets, the tree pruning and landscaping,
Yes.
the maintenance, what we.
Certainly.
I'd like to do that.
Well, I'd like to delve into that right now. Tree pruning and landscaping for 40,000, tree preservation, 15,000. What are the differences? And then explain the Lake Zuror water quality improvements. Is that different than Envirotech or some similar group coming in and doing a partial dredging of the finger of Lake Zuror?
So so there's a separate, the dredging, the accretion project for 53,000 is separate.
Right.
Unfortunately, the city arborist is not on the call today because she's quarantining. So I can have her available, hopefully at the next budget meeting.
Okay.
I think the tree preservation, we have a fund where we're collecting, actually I think we've got about $80,000 in there. I think that $15,000 is really coming out of that fund.
Right, but what's it used for? I mean, is it used for planting presumably?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Is that really the tree mitigation fund?
That's what it is.
So when people pay an
Yeah.
alternative to planting a tree, that fund goes into this line item?
Yeah,
That's
'cause
correct.
This is expenditures.
This is expenditures.
Yeah, but what the mayor's talking about is we do raise money, and that's how we've accumulated that cash from these mitigation fees. So they're being sort of reinvested in planting new trees.
Because one thing I want to be sure of is that the money that we raise every year for the, and it's listed elsewhere as memorial fund, we really got to change that because it's no longer memorial fund. But for the commemorative tree program, could be over and above whatever is budgeted for tree planting through the regular budget. In other words, the commemorative tree fund is not underwriting the city's budget. It is in addition to.
You're correct in saying that, and we do track the activity, the expenditures for there, so we have reports available to help you.
Okay, yeah, you sent me one at one point, and I wanted to compare it with the other lines too. Where are like the Spasato contracts in here? Would that be under tree pruning and landscaping, or would that be under
Contractual services.
okay. Would be under what? Say it again.
I'm sorry, contractual services? 511,400.
Oh, yeah, all right. So that actually has gone down in the last couple of years. Or maybe it was just up that 1 year or something. In fiscal 20, it was over 200,000 and now it's 115.
Right. I can't recall what the special event was that triggered the 210,000, but there was something that occurred back then, and I'd have to, I
Well,
can't.
some of that, I'm sorry, Bert, some of that was an expense that we contracted with a professional to give us some advice and a report on our parks and playgrounds.
Okay.
And part of that also is we had a outside contractor inspecting our playgrounds. And now Liz is certified in doing that.
Okay.
So that's part of the reason for the decrease.
Okay.
Charlie.
Anything else on parks?
I hope we talk with Denrek about sucking the muck out of the western tip of Lake Zuror before we undertake that project. Get Denrek on board.
Yeah, I agree. We can see if they have a program or would be willing to do it at a lesser fee.
Or money, maybe some money would be great too.
That's true too, because remember they did the Finger of Silver Lake not too long ago.
Yep.
Next on page is 28 is parking meter expenditures.
Is this anywhere in here that we could draw any information from Meterless Monday for affecting either expenditures or revenues?
You'd have to do a little deeper dive than that. Vicky has done some work on that, and that requires a little more analysis.
Yeah, and I think from the expense side, the only thing that we see is probably a savings in just the part-time salaries.
Is it possible to get some ballpark figures on that at least, so we know what we could are expecting and what, if you will, lost revenue and saved salary? Not just a...
Sure.
Yeah, I second that.
There's nothing else on parking meters. We'll go to page 29, which is police.
Mayor, I'm sorry, before we move on, Evan, there's a quite a difference in what we budgeted this year and what's projected in terms of the expenses. It's probably about a 30% overage on salaries. Do you know why that is?
Well, it's really going back to what they used to be. You don't have.
Right. Yeah, so we had actually a massive shortage in staffing this year, not only from Meterless Monday, but also from the COVID pandemic. We struggled to find interested individuals that were willing to work and actually be outside interacting with the public. So we were basically working with a skeleton crew this past summer. So that's why the projection is so much lower than what it is budgeted for next year and compared to previous year actuals.
No. What I'm saying is we budgeted 92,000 and the projection is 126,000, or is that a typo? So our expenses are higher than what we budgeted, it looks like.
Well, you're right, Commissioner. That number needs to be changed because simple reason is the actual year to date was only 87,000.
Right.
So that's more than a typo. That's just a mistake.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Page 29 is police. Page 30 is police grant fund. Page 31 is municipal street aid fund. Page 32, Sussex County grant.
That.
The
Page 30,
municipal street aid fund, here's another big change from year-to-date actual and projection. Is that something that should be changed as well in the projection, Bert?
I'm sorry? You're-
Budget for municipal street aids, the actual versus the projection for FY 2021.
Yeah, well, I think the reason for that is you get two payments. So the projection, I think, is right at 115
I
because
see.
we haven't received both payments.
Okay, thank you.
Page 33 is recreation and tennis. I think we've been over that already. Page 34 is public works. Notice in public works, we have Christmas lights, 22,000. Is that, let's see. What is that primarily paying for? Because we're anywhere from 17 to 22,000 annually on Christmas lights. Is that electricity for them? Is it purchase of the physical lights or displays?
It's both, right?
Yeah, it's both. Electricity does get allocated to that, and then whatever other costs are involved.
And snow removal, is that for outside contracting or is that for the actual salt?
That's us. That's the city.
Yeah.
So is that, what is the 20,000 going to? Fuel for the snow plows, maintenance, salt?
Yes, everything.
Oh, everything, okay.
It
Boardwalk
doesn't
maintenance.
include,
Go ahead.
it doesn't include any salaries or anything. It's just materials. The salaries are going to be in the wage category.
Gotcha, okay. We've got boardwalk maintenance. Are we still doing a maintenance program as we discussed with, in front of Kevin at the Boardwalk and Beach Committee a year ago, where the program was just replacing individual boards?
That's correct.
And that boardwalk maintenance is material, that 45,000.
That's correct. And as we noted back in the spring, with all the fires, the price of materials went way up, especially lumber. So that one definitely.
Yeah, okay.
And the pandemic.
What kind of equipment do we rent? We went from $3,000 to a $53,000 rental.
That's a $50,000 typo. There should not be a 5 on there. It's just 3,000. Continuation from what we had budgeted last year.
All right, all right. So does that change the bottom total then?
Sure.
Okay, okay.
And
Very
one other question on there.
I like that.
Yeah.
Found $50,000 in the blink of an eye.
Just remember what departments you found it in.
Page,
Replace in kind.
page 35 was the
I'm sorry, one
treasurer.
question back on 34, the engineering cost, is that streetscape?
So in each of the engineering lines, some of it is housekeeping. We had erroneously charged some things before in previous years in different categories. So some of it's housekeeping, but
Okay.
for streets department in particular, it was the $50,000 nut for the streetscape planning, which we're hoping we won't need. We should find out from DelDOT here shortly whether or not they're going to fund it for us. So.
Great.
It's Sharon, Kevin, not that it's a big deal, but we might want to change the Christmas lights to maybe holiday lights as a description.
Sure,
Sure.
good idea, thank you.
Good point.
Mute it. Tell Max we got changes. I think we have the 4th of July.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I was just told. I'll go back to the beginning. Page 1. Okay, 35, 36, 37 is all the budget for the water fund.
We will talk more about that later. I have a lot of questions.
Okay, and then the last page is this accounting is the wastewater fund.
Same with wastewater.
I think I speak for everybody when I compliment Kevin for the work and Bert for all the work they've done on this. This Munis system is light years ahead of our old system. It's very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Schedules for upgrades and status of where we are on all the upgrades and what our plans are for the next 5 years and how we're going to schedule that going forward. I have all the information that you've presented so far in public meetings, but we have a lot of other questions.
So Sharon, do you want to go to your capital improvement program, 5-year CIP plan? Or we do the same thing, go through page by page. I found it very productive.
Okay, that's fine, and we have individual, Evans prepared a slideshow, as you have seen in the past. Excuse me just one second, I'm sorry.
Quick question. What are the asterisks for on the capital improvement plan pages?
The asterisks are basically projects that either were deferred from last year or are just an annual program. So you'll see, like, for example, citywide paving, that's an annual program. The stormwater assessment repairs, annual program. Then there's some other things, like just under those two, the Stormwater Basin 40, that design was pushed from last year to this year.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all want to take a 2-minute pit stop, or are you all right?
Two minutes.
All right, we'll take a few-minute recess. Thank you. Patrick, are you back on?
I am.
There you go. So far, we've talked about the general expenses and revenues. We've got the next section we're going to be talking about is the capital improvement plan. The third section, it would be a discussion of 5-year capital improvement plan. At this time, I'd like to pause a minute and let the members of the public that have signed up to speak be able to offer comments. I would suggest that they be limited to what we've talked to about so far, and that you wait on any comments on the capital improvement program or capital projects until after we've discussed those. So Rick Perry, are you online? How about Carol Everhart?
I am Mayor. Comment at this time.
All right, thank you, Carol. Walter Brittingham? Must be off. And Gary Glass, are you there?
I am here and I have no comment at this time.
All right, Gary, we'll get back to you. Thank you very much. I'll turn it back to you, Sharon, and Evan and
Thank
Kevin.
you. Thank you. If you can all just, hopefully you have this 5-year capital improvement plan document that you see on the screen, if you can look at that. And then we're going to follow the descriptive information with some photographs and other descriptive information that Evan prepared. So and again, just to recap, and maybe I was out of the room, I apologize. Evan might, I think I did hear someone ask what the asterisks are for.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was explained that those are carried over from last year and continuous projects such as the street paving. So we'll just take it. Number 1 is the alterations to the City Hall reception desk. We still have that in there. We've still continue to have some urgent, albeit anonymous, requests for that. We still do have that in there for $87,000.
Let me offer some comments. As mayor, I've also received one of those anonymous letters requesting that something being done to protect their loved ones. Don't know who it's from, obviously, but it does raise it to a higher level for me. I've never, this has never been in front of me before as a mayor or commissioner. I know it was up for proposed in last year's budget and failed, if you will. I'm all for security and protection of our employees. It does lend itself to a few questions for me, especially after I've been in the town of Lewis and some other municipal foyers there, where some of them have is one window to the reception desk. There are none others. And again, I'm all for security and everything. I just wonder if we can't cut the budget in a third or a third out of it or a half by eliminating some of these windows, turning them into solid walls or something. Also, the question is for protection. This is probably more so for irate people, angry people coming in the building that are angry. And you know what? I have seen my share of anger actually at this desk since I've been in, where people get pissed as can be at everybody when they are paying their water bill late and they get a call saying you need to pay, you haven't paid yet, and they just get furious. It's just amazing how angry some people can get. And so I know this is a long shot, but the safety for our employees, I think, is very important. Again, some of the questions are, well, if people are people going to use it to just get at the people at the front reception desk, then maybe we do one thing. If they're trying to break the envelope and get into all the administrative building sections, then you've got the window to the mayor and the city manager's office that maybe you need to look at. Also, I'm wondering about the reception area, I call it. That's where you go through the front door and there's a little vestibule there and the counter where you would stand and talk with city personnel there. Do they use that area anymore? Or are they, might they be afraid and not let people in there anymore because that's a potential area to breach and get behind the counter or cause harm from jumping over the counter or something. And so I'm just speaking out loud that, you know, have we looked at all the ramifications of this and the potential for having a perfectly secure envelope out there? Thank you.
Mayor, I would just comment that that vestibule area you're referring to, no one gets through that area to speak to any staff member. That's primarily for a passageway, if you will, for employees, either from upstairs or from within downstairs going upstairs. And another way to speak to the front desk person rather than going around that mail bin slot and standing there. As far as, you know, chopping this into 1/3, 1/2, I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing that. Again, I'll use your word, Mayor, as to the aesthetics and design of the building. I think the approximately $80,000 will do the front area service if the commissioners indeed vote to go that way. As far as building and licensing, you know, there's panels now to, of course, for the protection of staff with the virus when we were open. But, I mean, it could be a consideration for the following year.
Right. I think that's fair. I'm not hearing any objections to it, so proceed. Thank you.
I don't
Thank
know
you.
how, Stan, were you moved by this anonymous letter or the anonymous letter we've been receiving? Are they valid, or did you read that and say, yeah, this is something that comes to my attention, or did you think, I just don't know? Because I have nothing to go on. I'm sitting here with nothing to go on.
Well, before you know, certainly I won't speak for the mayor, but since this topic came up, you'll recall those commissioners who were here in prior years and those commissioners that are new. We had a preventative program administered by a police officer twice to city staff, just to advise them of, you know, what precautions to take if there were an active shooter in the building. I think that's part of our training. That it's very important to do that. And out of that came some alarm, of course, that, you know, maybe it was there before, but it was certainly heightened by the level of training that was received. So some of the staff members were concerned about that. When it was not passed in the budget, then we started receiving anonymous letters. So are they valid? Well, they're anonymous. And I think probably the best representation for me to make is that, you know, some family members or employees themselves are determined to now have this this level of security. And is it valid? I mean, I would say that it's valid, especially from the street level coming in. You know, that's the primary focus for the reception area. Of course, you can come in from the street level and go right upstairs to building and licensing, but there's a little, you know, more separation, I'll say.
Yeah.
And Sharon, this was in the budget for this year. It got deferred like many other things because of the pandemic, but it
That's
didn't
correct.
fail to meet the budget. It was in there. Yeah, okay.
Sharon, you took some measures this year to provide some security at that window, didn't you?
I, you can call it security, but I think it was more for the safety because of the virus. So it's
This
not
is-
very secure. If somebody wanted to come in and, you know, put their fist through it, they certainly could do that.
This is probably not a good question, and you probably don't need to answer it unless you, have we ever had an incident where something happened?
We had an incident, yes, where an individual came in and was very alarming to the front reception person at the time, and you know, they did call the police, and the police responded within, you know, less than a minute or so. But
Yeah.
you know, it was just a verbal altercation. There was nothing physical.
Yeah, the police come pretty fast. I remember when Paul stepped on the button by mistake, and they came here, heartbeat.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Well, again, that's all. I mean, you know what it is. So.
Yeah.
Sharon, would this have a similar appearance to what is currently in the police department?
Well, you can see that I wouldn't say, well.
I think architecturally, it's going to look almost exactly the way it looks now.
Okay.
They're just solidifying the walls so that they become, I don't know, bulletproof is probably an exaggeration, but, you know, bullet resistant. It'll be bullet resistant glass. And then the sliding window will be a little different look just because of the sizing, I think, and it'll slide as opposed to right now it's a kind of a roll up wood door.
And yeah.
But I think architecturally, you really won't notice much of a difference.
Thank you. And some of you will remember that window design in the original City Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Okay.
But those three windows, you can see on the at the top drawing on the right, those are kind of, they start around that corner as you make your way around the side of the entryway, and if you're going to head up toward the stairs. So
yeah,
a little misleading, that face-on look the way it is right now, because it bends around a little bit to get to those three windows.
Yep.
Okay.
No more questions from me.
Next item.
Okay. Next item is the building and grounds. Kevin, if you can take
Sure.
that.
So we have an item in there for the man lift. It's been a request of the department for a while. It enables them to get up to the roof of the building or the ceiling of the building, which they cannot do right now. They have a roll-on, solid roll-on, roll-off kind of stairwell, which is not the best. So this was a big improvement for them and a fairly small dollar item.
Yeah.
Is this a purchase or a rental?
Purchase.
Purchase, okay.
I think that's it for
The next is the comfort stations.
the items in the comfort station. CIP 1 is for the re-advertisement and add the family restrooms and changing rooms at the Delaware Avenue restroom. And it includes money for the design of an upgrade to the Baltimore Avenue restroom to make that all-weather, year-round usage, as well as to expand the area for the beach patrol office, as well as additional family and compliant restrooms.
The beach patrol improvements would include a second floor.
That's correct, under the concept design that was done a year or so ago.
Right, very good.
But this 120 is just for the design.
That's correct.
Okay.
Next, we have the streets department, streets and refuse.
So the first item is just a continuation of our annual paving program. We have not yet selected the areas. We will do that shortly.
Kevin,
next is all, yes, sir.
you have data collection now at your disposal to really hone in on the, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Finish up what you were doing on paving.
I finished that. We're moving on to storm sewer assessment and repairs.
Yeah, okay. You have data at your disposal now to really get a good handle on that, I'm assuming. And you're 200,000 a year on out, I'm assuming. We're repairing and replacing, or are we going to do the whole shoot and match? I know we got work that needs to be done on Bayard and on Scarborough and a lot of other places. And I'm assuming we're looking at 200,000 from here on out, which I think is
yeah, that really that's a placeholder for sure. The assessment piece, we started this past year. We did a lot of both sanitary and storm sewer video assessments. We originally planned to start the repair program this year on the stormwater side, but I think we really need to get through our feasibility study on the stormwater utility that had been started this year, but won't finish until mid the next fiscal year. So we put some additional money in, you'll see later on, to finish that study, to see if in fact we do want to set up a stormwater utility, and then what those fees would be if we decide to. Before we really get into the major rehabs, which are going to cost significant dollars. If we start attacking Bayard system, I mean that's a multi-year, multi-million-dollar kind of job. So what we've got in now is to continue the assessment, get a better picture of what we have on underground out there, as well as finish up that feasibility study, the utility study, to see if we do want to institute a stormwater utility here in the city, to start developing a systematic revenue stream to do a lot of the big stormwater projects that we know need to be done. There is money in there to do some of the small isolated things that we've done in the past several years with spot locations that tend to hold water longer than others. We've done some French drain work. We've done some cleaning and those kinds of things to get a localized stormwater issue resolved. But the big projects like you mentioned, I think we're going to need to have a dedicated funding stream in place before we want to start tackling those. So,
thanks. You've answered a lot of questions that I have down the line, and yeah, thanks for this discussion. And you're thinking that you're going to have the plan maybe done by the middle of next year? Are you talking the middle of next calendar year? Middle of
correct. Probably most of the season, because a lot of the effort we want to make sure we have everybody here, and of course part of it is involved with public meetings, and in order to do that, it helps if we can all sit around the table and look at the presentation versus virtual. So we're hopeful that certainly by the summer we'll be able to have we'll be back in the commissioner's room or the convention center, and to be able to have a much more effective public meeting.
Well, I will second that. Thanks a lot.
Hey,
Sure.
Kevin, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So we were talking about sort of, patchwork kinds of things, French drains, et cetera, et cetera. Given the cost for the stormwater basin number 40, is there possible for that to be done sort of a spot fix until everything's been assessed?
So the problem in Stormwater Basin 40 is it has really nowhere to go. It kind of captures itself at all of the intersections. So in order to get it out of there, we got to put a pipe in the ground to take it somewhere. Yeah. So that's why we need we did the feasibility study last year where we now know that it is feasible, with grades and elevations and that type of thing, to be able to get it from those intersections and away from the curb line and get it downstream toward Lake Zuror. So this would get the detailed design done for that. But spot repairs really aren't going to help much in that area because there's nowhere to take it.
What kind of, I'm sorry, Pat, were you done? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right, go ahead. He pretty much answered my question. I'm just looking at the cost of it in, 2023 and 2024, and it's, wow, it's a big one.
Yeah.
Right, and that includes, just so you know, that estimate includes replacing we videoed the sewer this year, and we know it's in pretty bad shape. Water, a little still questionable, so we want to take a harder look at that. But, when we start excavating to put in stormwater pipe, we would also replace whatever other pipe in the ground would need to be done at the same time. So that 830 and 600 does include what we think it includes the sanitary sewer replacement in there as well.
Yeah, good. That's good to know. That makes.
But the idea would be to open the street once and fix everything at the same time. That's why we've kind of got it broken off into chunks that we think we can complete in an off season, so we don't have it completely dug up, throughout the summer.
Right. Thank you.
If you were going to put an emergency, nice to do, need it today, level on that, what are those? Where do those fall? Are they we better get ready to do it next year, or we can phase it, or what?
Talking about the Basin 40?
Yes, sir.
So we would be ready, assuming the design gets done, which I don't know why it wouldn't, by November-ish, so that we could then execute that 830 in the next fiscal year's budget.
Okay. You're talking FY 22 that we're working on now.
Correct, and we'll do the design in this upcoming year.
Gotcha.
Kevin, I have a couple questions about this. You're basically saying that because the various stormwater projects are spread throughout this budget, but they all seem to have shifted a year. Are you saying it's because the assessment process needs to go a little longer?
Certainly for Basin 40, because we need to take it to design next. So you really can't do that any quicker. We'd have it hopefully in place to execute, the next fiscal year. The others, and I would probably throw this one in that same batch, is I would really like to have, a decision made on the stormwater utility. And if in fact that is the way we're going to go, then we can start collecting the fees associated with that utility to do some of those major infrastructure projects.
So that's why they keep moving, because we don't
correct.
Yet solve.
That's correct. So getting the assessments done now, so we've got them sitting ready to go when we have a funding stream to pay for some of those things, is what we're trying to accomplish.
Right. Okay. Because I noticed they keep moving, and I just didn't know. But when you talk about having meetings in the summer and having live meetings, you are talking about the utility feasibility meetings.
That's
right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So on the two other things, on the sewer assessment, there was 50,000 in the current fiscal year, right? That didn't get deferred, did it, or did it?
No, we used every bit of both sanitary and storm assessment money I think we had in this current fiscal year. In fact, they made great hay during the COVID time, from April to July when the streets were not as busy as usual and they were out there cleaning and videoing.
So that assessment process really is a $100,000 process, not a $50,000 process, because you need another 50 to keep doing the assessment before you can start any repairs.
Well, for this fiscal year, I've only got 50 in there for storm sewer.
Right.
Let me check on
that. But you did 50 this current year is what I'm saying.
I think we might have done a little more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's okay. So
because we physically couldn't do it all. We couldn't do it all in 1 year if we had all the money in the world.
Right. Okay.
It just takes that amount of time. So this would be another iteration of adding to our database of where our issues are.
Right. Okay.
Or what we can do to fix our issues. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was under the impression the original 50 was going to give us all that, but it clearly is not. It's an ongoing process.
No, I think we got about Evans. If he's got last year's stuff there, he could tell us. But I think it was 100 maybe.
Yeah, we did over.
And we got a bunch of money from the sanitary grant, I think. So we got about a third of our overall storm sewer and sanitary sewer
Okay.
cleaned and videoed. So I mean, it's a big chunk that hadn't been done in a while. And if nothing else, if the video shows it's great, the cleaning itself is worth the time and effort.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it sort of reminded me when I was looking at this that I went back and you gave a really nice overall stormwater management presentation. I remember it because it was my first meeting. It was September of 19. Do you think maybe in the next few months we should get an update of that? Stan, I don't know what you think, but you know, it might be nice to just get an overall picture of this.
Sure. Sure.
Okay. Just throw that out there. Okay, that's all I had.
Get that for me. So our electric vehicle this past year that we got for the recycling, which we never really did, proved to be a huge hit with the guys. And it is so much better on the boardwalk than anything else in our inventory. Yep. So this was the second purchase that we wanted to make. As you remember, you'll probably remember, we had them in one in each of 2-year budget cycles. So this is the second one of those. One we will continue to use for boardwalk trash, and the other we will start using for recycling as soon as we bring that program online. So that was a big hit.
Are you going to make any changes with the new vehicle that you didn't incorporate in vehicle number 1?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'll certainly talk to the guys and make sure that, you know, because some of our trash guys are rather large of girth, it's a little tight for some, so they'd want more room, but I don't know that that's one of the options they would be able to provide.
Yeah.
Kevin, is the bed watertight?
Yes, it has proven to be, yeah.
Okay, good. And I, you know, if I were on the crew, I would want a hydraulic dump. And I'm surprised they haven't asked for that, but they load it manually and then they have to unload it manually too. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Is that have enough power to pull a trailer if you need to?
They said it would. I don't know that it would, or that we would really want it to, just because now you got, you know, an extension on this thing with,
Yep.
you know, not the most experienced drivers operating it, because it doesn't require a, you know, a CDL.
Mm-hmm.
Being electric, it's a lot more quiet than the other vehicles we put on there, and certainly a lot cleaner. But in terms of being quiet, is there any problem sneaking up on pedestrians or joggers?
There is, but a toot of the horn usually takes care of it. But it's extremely quiet.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a little kid, we had a guy come around selling ice cream cones. You could hear him a mile away. We need to get one of those bells.
Part of the glory is the quietness, right?
Yeah.
Peace and quiet on the beach.
Yeah.
All right, next. We got to click these. There's the stormwater basin design we mentioned earlier, and kind of see the two phases on the left.
Yeah.
This past year, we repaired the roof on the streets department building. This year, we would like to move that effort over onto the vehicle maintenance building. They do the 2 bays on the right, as you can see, and then the wastewater department operates the 2 bays on the left. But you can see it's hard to tell in that picture on the right, but you know, you got leaking water on the floor there, and then you can see all the stains in the roof. So just an update to fix the roof at that building. The Polaris is a replacement for one that has reached the end of its expected life, and we will probably put that in the sale, the next sale. So that's a replacement vehicle for that. This is a replacement tractor for the beach wagon. It does the beach wagon. It does the trash morning and night down at the beach. Again, a replacement vehicle, and the existing tractor will go to the sale rather.
Kevin, would we buy a new tractor? Would be a new tractor?
Yeah, we would hope to get a new one.
Okay.
They hold their value incredibly well, so we'll probably get some money out of the used one too.
How many do we have?
2 tractors. One pulls the beach rake and one pulls the trash wagon.
So the replacement for in 2024 is the other one, presumably.
Correct.
Okay.
So the skid steer has been on for a couple of years. it looks like we're hopeful to be able to fund that this year. It certainly has a lot of uses with respect to the access ways, the dune crossings down on the beach. Also with a lot of the little jobs that we do, both in the water department and the wastewater department. So this will be a multi-department vehicle that'll be owned and operated by the streets department.
What are we allowed to do and what are we not allowed to do with the skid steer on the beach?
So to date, all that work is typically done by DENREC. Last year or last season, they did come to us and said, hey, they're willing to entertain, us, the municipality, working on and performing maintenance on our dune crossings, access ways. You'll know under this year, I guess we got replacement beach mats for all of the dune crossings that didn't have mats before. So this will be very important for us to be able to do the site work, to get every spring, as the dunes move and relocate, we need to be able to clear those to get the mats down. This will be ideal for that, as well as picking up any blowage that goes across, the boardwalk or anywhere else for that matter.
Well, that's a great advancement. Whoa.
We haven't told DENREC we're willing to take over some of that maintenance because we don't want them to wash their hands entirely. But we know this will really help us with our maintenance of the dune crossing.
Yeah.
The leaf vac, some of you will probably recall last year, it was all we could do. We lost both of them, for a good majority of the winter time, and leaves just kept piling up. So we were able to get both of them fixed and back and running, but it's now time to start the replacement process. So this would be a replacement for one of the two leaf vacuums that we currently have. Next up, the concrete pad at the recycle yard. This is our next step in our effort to get some things undercover that should be undercover. We've moved the salt pad or salt pile over undercover so we don't get pinged from DENREC for the wash away or the erosion on the salt dome. We also want to get fill material that water and wastewater use. Whenever they're backfilling, you got to have clean material. We also want to get the lumber undercover. So this is for the concrete pad. An additional concrete pad will go right next to that one. And then I think in the water department budget, we put the pole barn to cover it. So it's a multi-departmental facility. So we'll let each of them pay a little bit of it. But this would be for the pad next to the existing pad and cover out there. I don't know if this is Commissioner Legree's trash truck that he wants to get rid of, but we've got one that's at the end of its life, literally. It was a 2020 edition of the trash truck, which is just no longer working. So this is a replacement for that. Yeah, straight up. It's actually going to be one of the smaller ones, so it does not require the CDL license, and it's much more maneuverable, in through town.
And you'll use that to meet the electric vehicle at the crossings and at the end of the run and stuff like that. This is not going to be on the boardwalk. Yes.
That's correct. It will not be on the boardwalk. Now, whether it's used as the transfer vehicle to get the trash away or that's a large one, I'm not sure, but we'll leave that to the streets department to determine. But this is better for picking up, the trash, throughout the town where it's a little tighter congestion. Plus all of our weekend guys, this would be great for them.
Is this a gasoline truck with a clean engine?
I think it's diesel. I'm pretty sure it's diesel. This was a project that was deferred from last year. Our two charging stations down at the Triangle by the Henlopen condos have been very sporadic, and it's hard to get them fixed anymore. I guess they were done under a University of Delaware program some years ago. So the idea here is to put two pedestals, so four chargers here behind City Hall and behind the firehouse in a site to be picked later. But it would take four parking spaces.
So Kevin, are we abandoning the ones at Henlopen?
yeah, that would be my recommendation, to get them, you know, dead-ended and whatever else would need to be done to make it safe and to get those out of there.
You know, you're right. We did those in partnership with Willett Kempton and the university. Have you been in touch with them to see if they would replace them for free or split the cost so that we could maintain that location?
Mayor, I think that program is now defunct. And
What
they
is-
have not been very responsive in the past when we've had outages or repairs that have been needed. We've been taking that on for at least 4 years now ourselves.
Well, will these, I'm not that familiar with them, but I know they have some kind of app where you're able to, maybe the app is separate than these charging stations, but you're able to go on it and it tells you where they're located. Again, maybe that's a whole separate thing. That's just telling people where they are, but do you have a location for these behind City Hall?
We identified a couple of spots over there, fairly close to the transformer pad, so to minimize the installation costs. I don't know that we've locked any of those in, but that's kind of where we've looked when we were doing the concept of this.
Mm-hmm. And how many are you putting there?
2 pedestals, each with two chargers, so it'd take 4 spaces.
Are we at a situation where we can expand that? I can see this going much bigger in the next coming years.
Well, I know that private entities, as you've seen, I'm sure, on the highway, have several of them.
Yeah.
And certain businesses and hotels here in the city actually have them.
Yeah.
So the debate 6 years ago was, should the city even provide them, or should the private businesses provide them? You'll recall that, Mayor.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I supported the city providing them.
Where do we charge our 2 trucks?
Fortunately, those just plug into a regular outlet, so they're charged down in the streets department.
Got you.
They have a bay dedicated for them, or it.
Kevin, any guesstimate on what the installation cost would be for these units?
No, the number we were using was, I think, 30K all in. So that assumed, a certain short distance to run. I think our installation will be a little higher, but it shouldn't be exorbitant because there is a transformer to be able to tie into right there. Now, if we decide we want to put them over here, in front of the mural, then it's a whole different story. But as long as we're on the perimeter over near a power source, it should be pretty close to that 30K all in.
And one thing that I'll add too, Commissioner, is Kevin and I were actually in touch with DENREC, they offer clean vehicle rebates. So the charging stations themselves could be eligible for up to 90% to be covered through the rebate program. So that's something that made it a little bit more attractive to us. I'll also throw out there too, just back on the electric vehicle, we actually received a $2,500 rebate for that vehicle as well. Whether they're going to continue that into next year, we're not sure, but we were able to receive that rebate this year. So,
yeah. Evan caught him a little bit by surprise when he submitted the request. They didn't have a reason to say no, so they said yes.
So would these also then be a revenue source for the city?
I don't think we've explored.
I don't think we set it up like that.
Do they pay now?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
The
We'll have to
electricity.
charge them something just so they don't pull in there and park.
Well, the electricity is free, but if the meter season's in effect, they have to pay for the meter.
There you
The
go.
ones over by the Henlopen?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I see the same car there several times.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Good deal.
Free electricity.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. That's good. The next up is the pedestrian crossing across State Road. We've talked about this a couple of times at a couple of meetings. So the traffic analysis, pedestrian counts showed that our our busier intersection across the state is at Grove and Munson. I think we attribute a lot of that to Rise Up and just the traffic around the traffic circle. So we have had a concept design done. We spoke, coordinated with DelDOT a week or two ago, week before the holidays. And now we're ready to move forward with completing the design and permitting, which is in this year's budget. And then next year, the budget we're working on now, fiscal year 22, we would look to actually construct that. And it would be reconfiguring the two landings on the south side of this picture, the bottom part of the picture, and then two new landings on the top part of that picture to make them all ADA compliant, and then the crosswalks with, again, adding the flashing beacons for those crosswalk pedestrians to be able to get across State Road.
That's great. This is very needed.
Is there any opportunity to turn that into a four-way stop?
No. Probably not at this point, because it's it's a DelDOT road. We pushed them about as hard as we could push them in order to get crosswalks put in at our expense. So I would not at this point pursue a four-way stop on State Road.
Very, very happy to see this, Kevin.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, for your hard work at pushing that through as well. There's the completion of the stormwater feasibility study, which we had talked about earlier, trying to set up. And then just to reiterate, I know we've talked about it before, but this became a reality when we were part of that Resilient Communities Partnership grant that did all of the topo work that we would need to be able to do something like this. So our little, 50K contribution into this program, it would have been significantly more to get to where we're going to go if we had to go out and get that topo coverage done for us. So whoever got that grant for us, Evan, thank you very much. I think that's it for me. Huh?
It's a great tool.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
Next we have the parking department. Evan?
Yeah, so I guess many of you will recall that we are in the process of replacing all of our single head Duncan meters with multi-space pay stations. So this is sort of part of a program to get rid of a lot of that pole clutter and give us the flexibility to implement a parking system that can be configured any way that we wish. We have gone towards a license plate recognition system. So these pay stations integrate well with the enforcement vehicles. And on the left is just a picture of the station themselves. And then on the right is just a Google Maps that I've been working with June Embert and Frank Lloyd over at the parking department to put together basically a parking map that can be used by staff. But what it highlights here is just the location of all of our pay stations thus far. So the first year, which is 2 years ago, we installed about 46 pay stations identified by the blue parking icons. That was in the downtown commercial area. And then the second year, which was last year, we expanded upon that, which would be all the green icons, which are about 48 pay stations. For this summer, we are hoping to go ahead and replace all of the remaining single head meters. That would include installing roughly 33 pay stations in the areas that you can see. So we actually have 6 pay stations being installed as part of the Lake Avenue Streetscape project, because it just makes sense at the time to have the contractor go ahead and install the foundations for those pay stations, as opposed to remove the single head meter poles and then put them back in. We're also proposing Lake Avenue, an expansion of Christian Street, which we had done Martin's Lawn last year, so we want to do all of Christian Street. The second blocks of Philadelphia and Brooklyn Avenues, and then north at Surfside Place. And then we're also considering doing something at Deauville Beach as well. That might be a topic for a future mayor and commissioners meeting, though.
Couple questions, Evan. This looks great.
Sure.
Does the cost, and the cost is what, the 234,000? Does that include the removal of all the poles?
So we actually remove the poles internally. We have Bill Maffei with the Tech Services Department or division within the Streets Department. He has himself and then also a part-time employee. They go out and they remove the poles. In some cases, we've actually opted to keep the poles because it gives us a way to mount a sign rather than cutting out concrete, pouring concrete to install the sign. We can just affix it to an existing pole without doing a good amount of work. But we do all of that work internally.
Okay, so there's really no cost associated with that.
Correct, and that number does include the roughly 230,000, includes the cost of shipping and freight and installation by a third-party company that T2 Systems, who manufactures the pay stations, that they use, and they have been phenomenal in terms of installing these pay stations, getting them all in, within a couple days, even if it's just leading up to the season. They've been great to work with.
So is this at the end? I mean, they'll all be done as of this one?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, and remind me, does this give us flexibility going forward to change, days that meters are operating or change time without a whole lot of effort? I mean, is that one of the advantages of these?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I love most about these pay stations. So these are the whole back-end system, the software configuration that they use is so much more user-friendly than the Parkeon meters that we have on Rehoboth Avenue. The Parkeon meters can take several days, maybe a week, to actually download a new configuration, and the system itself is just extremely confusing. The system that T2 uses is extremely user-friendly. You can usually have the configuration done overnight, and there's a lot more flexibility in terms of, for example, the meterless Monday, I can set a restricted parking code, which results in me not needing to do a new configuration. So it does give us a lot more flexibility in terms of days and hours and how we want the screen to appear, what we want the screen to say, all of those things.
Right. Okay. Great. And I see that the virtual parking permits, which we talked a lot about last year, has gotten bumped off again. Is that just because it's not a priority, or what?
I would say at this point, I mean, we're still in discussions with T2. Where we left off with them was we just hadn't gotten to the point where we were satisfied with the program that we were trying to pursue. It also came down to the need that there's going to have to be some code changes in terms of how many permits are issued, who's eligible for free permits, how many, in order to make it a successful project and one that's easy to implement. So we're still discussing with them, but I sort of felt that, the priority is to get all of the old single head meters out of the way and the new pay stations in, get more and more of the public used to using their license plate, which is sort of the trend that parking technology is going towards.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thank you, Evan. Chief Banks, are you still with us? Chief?
I am, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take this budget.
Thank you. The next two are yours.
Okay.
911 dispatch and the police department.
Okay. So it looks like what's on the screen is the radio replacement. And that's for 3 portable radios that will be needing for upgrades. We're experiencing that the depot will not fix them anymore. Or so every year, each cadet seasonal police officer out there on the street has a radio, as well as the full-time officers that they carry with them. So we're trying to every year buy 3 so we can upgrade our radios as required, again, because soon some of the 3000s are no longer going to be able to be used out on patrol. So we really don't have a choice. We send them to depot for repairs, and maintenance contracts are in place as much as possible, but this is just life expectancy. And then, so that's for 3 portables and 1 for mobile for a new vehicle. That's in the budget through the lease program through Enterprise. So the first picture you saw was a mobile radio that would go inside a vehicle, and the second one you saw was the portable.
And Chief, for this project, I didn't know exactly what equipment you needed in the vehicle, so I just put commissioners for you to be aware. This is a new Ford Police Interceptor that we've actually received 2 so far from Enterprise. We're planning to receive a 3rd next year, so that's just an idea of what those look like. Chief, if you want to talk the equipment that goes inside.
Yeah, the equipment will be paid for, incorporated when it comes. It will already be installed through Magnum, our contractor, through that. So it'll be incorporated into lease agreement. And what we will pay for when it gets here is just installation of the radio and to get the car striped or marked per se. And so the rest will just be in the lease program. So, but it will have full emergency lights on it, overhead headlight bar. So it would be a fully marked unit. And it is to replace a old vehicle again, and that Art has said we are spending down at City Garage that we're spending too much money on because of maintenance of old Caprice that we still have. So at that point, we'll all have the SUV Fords, so they will be consistent and look alike.
How many total vehicles will we have in the department then?
In our department, that will be 11, and that counts for the pickup truck that we put out, traffic cones, and for all the different events that we have. And sometimes we pull the carts out for the parking division. And then, of course, we have a UTV out there too. And so the rest are patrol, and we have to have at least 1 backline vehicle for officers to do transports back and forth, as well as officers going to training and all. And anytime a vehicle is down for maintenance and all. So basically, it goes to patrol, the truck, the UTV, and then as far as admin, I have 1 and the 2 lieutenants and the detective. So a total of 11.
Thank you, Chief.
In the wastewater department, the first line item is, we call it pump station rehab, but it's really a SCADA upgrade at each of our remote pumping facilities. This will be the replacing the PLC and some electric upgrades within Lake Zuror and St. Lawrence pump stations. The sewer vac truck was a deferral from last year, and I think a deferral from the year prior to that. But this is a replacement vehicle for the vac truck that we currently have. Here's a continuation of our sewer line assessment and rehab. In this case, we do have them combined, as Commissioner Legree had mentioned earlier, or maybe it was Commissioner Gay. But a portion of that is the video, and a portion of that is the actual either lining or open cut excavation and repair.
We're putting $400,000 a year for the next 5 years on that. And we've always, all of us have received a letter from Jennifer Duncan with the problems that she has been having. Are we going to replace, what are the plans? How much do we think we'll be replacing? Will we replace a third?
So, it's hard to just say that in the case of, what's the street? Dover.
Yeah.
Well, we found the other day, obviously there was a huge clog. It was our tree root. Whoever made the comment, it was probably a big oak right across from it is probably right. I mean, it was a huge tree root that had gotten in through an old abandoned lateral and just wreaked havoc. So in that case, we videoed while we were out there. We videoed the entire length. We cleaned and videoed the entire length. And really, all we need to do is kind of fix that spot repair. We don't need to, which we did. We don't need to open cut, remove, and replace that whole pipe, or we don't need to line it. The rest of the pipe's in pretty good condition. So it's going to be a balancing act. We just got to figure out whether it's better to go in and do a spot repair at a particular location, or to do a long lining like we did on Maryland and 2nd Street before the 2nd Street pavement contractor did his work. We have several sections, that we learned from this last year's video that could use the long stretch of lining, which might be the more effective, more cost-effective the way to fix those. So we'll take that into consideration as we develop what the actual fix plan is going to be. But typically, we would probably do about 1/4 of that in cleaning and videoing, and about 2/3 of that would be in some type of rehab, either a lining or a point repair, spot repair kind of thing.
Will the lining prevent the roots from coming back in?
In a lot of cases, yes. But as with regular pipe as well, it's the connections that cause us the problem. So when you make that reconnection or cut out that old connection to connect the house to that, it'll take care of all the old taps, that don't have anything attached to it anymore. But where you still have an active tap, you'll still have the opportunity for roots to get into that crack.
And the only thing that'll cure it definitively is plastic pipe.
Yeah, but again, it's at those connections that are the real problems. I mean, we do have some issues with joint separation where the roots get in some of the long old clay pipe.
Yep. How much clay pipe do we have? A third, a fourth, 10th? Do we have very much?
In our gravity mains, I would guess it more along the lines of 75–80% are still clay pipe.
Woo-hoo.
If not more. Yeah.
Kevin,
and in all honesty, when you look at the pipe itself, it's like, wow, I hope I look that good at 80, but it's the odd things, the connections in the joints where the typical failures. Now we do have some crushed clay pipe, but for the most part, the pipe segments themselves are fairly decent for being 70, 80 years old.
I remember the wastewater assessment, the management plan that GHD did. They ended it, I think, in the beginning of 2018. Did they take this kind of consideration into account for what we're looking at right now? I can't remember the numbers they put out on this.
Yeah, they sure did, which is kind of laid the template for our funding, our budget, based upon what they had built into their what they had determined in their asset management plan. So, and that's what we built into the rate study, when we did it last year. So we're trying to match, the resources to that funding stream that we set up with the rate study group, and trying to knock it out systematically like they had outlined for us in that asset management plan. They did big picture things. They said, okay, you've got X number of miles of force main. You need to do so many, whatever is a year, and they put a number in it. Now we're working the details of whether really it is that many miles or that many sections, or is it a point repair or a lining? Those kind of things we get after we make that visual assessment.
Are you still satisfied with what they predicted?
I would say yes. Both their water asset management plan and their wastewater asset management plan are very impressive. Having seen several of each, they're the best I've seen. Those two documents for asset management plan.
Thank you.
Kevin, a quick question for you. With regards to all the new construction we're having in homes here, and maybe building and licensing better to address this, but is there a visual inspection done if new laterals are connected to the main to see that they are correctly done?
So if it's a new lateral, I'll say yes in all cases, but if it's a new lateral, then it comes to us because they're going to be working in public space. So they come to us. We go out. We try to inspect, the tap when it's made, and we try to watch the backfill and compaction of the fill coming up. If they're just running to an existing clean out, we don't necessarily get that call because it's all on private space, and the guys upstairs are responsible for making sure, that work is done appropriately. But in most cases, even then, they'll call our water or sewer department, for both the disconnect and then the reconnect. So whether we're physically there to be able to see that work, not quite as much on the private side, but when they're in the street making a new connection, yes, we definitely are.
Thank you.
Next up is a portable generator. We bought one this year for, I want to say, North Shores. This one is for Hickman Street Pump Station if the power were to ever go out. These are our portables that we can tow behind, throw on the ground if we lose power for an extended period of time, provide backup power to those remote substations that don't already have, a backup generator. And last but not least, pump replacements. He tries to buy one or two pumps each year because of the dollar value. We have to report them as a CIP item so Bert can account for them and depreciate them. But it's more of a maintenance kind of item. But because of the dollar value, we carry them in the CIP. And I think that's it for.
Kevin?
Yes, sir.
In FY20, excuse me. Yeah, and in FY24 and 25, you have $6 million a year planned for the capital budget upgrades. Do you have any detail on that? Go ahead.
A little bit. So it's not to the level of detail that we would want for either a concept or a design, obviously. But you'll see. Oh no, you won't see because it's in the engineering budget. Where's my sheet? So one of the items in the engineering budget in the wastewater department is the initial planning development for that CIP phase 4. So that's where we'll determine, what's getting done in 3A and 3B and what's left to do around the plant in all those non-emergent type of issues that we want to get rolled into that final phase 4 contract.
Okay, when will you do that?
This coming fiscal year. So it'll start, it started already, but it'll start in earnest this summer.
Okay, because we need to plan for that. That's going to be a big expense. And
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
$10-12 million is a big expense for sure. And this is the one, as you know, that we're funding. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You were starting to talk.
I was just going to say, and you'll recall that this is the project that we're funding out of our rates, not out of our debt.
This is capital outlay, precisely.
Correct, and that's why what we outlined in that rate study is that at that 4-year mark, the 5th year, that wastewater rate jumps considerably again.
Yeah.
And that's specifically to address the phase 4 project.
And we need to plan for that. As you recall, maybe you don't, but former Mayor Cooper felt like if those projects were vetted, we might be able to slide some and reevaluate some of them. So we can be thinking about that, but that's several months down the road, and we don't have to make that decision until we start working on FY 2024. But I want to keep that in the back of our minds that we might slide some stuff around because $12 million is a lot of dollars, and we can do it.
And in all honesty, some of that has already kind of pulled forward. We pulled money out of phase 3 to get into phase 2 because of these things that 10 years ago weren't emergencies. Today are emergencies, and we got to do them right away. And the board's been very forthcoming in accounting for those emergencies as they come up. So I'm confident that 12 will be down, unless inflation goes, out of control. Some of that 12 million has already been done or is already in phase 2 or phase 3 projects.
Yes. And that's all the questions I have right now. Thanks a lot for taking up everybody's time.
Waters. Okay, we're back. This is our annual water meter replacement contract. We're getting ready to go at actually having a pre-con this week for this fiscal year's contract. And this will be for the next annual batch of those, somewhere around 200 or so meters and or pits replacement to get into the, the automated reading capability. Plus, just they're getting old. On the water side, pipe assessment and rehab, this would originally targeting our 4-inch water mains and our dead end water mains, because that's where we have issues with water quality. So we're targeting specifically those areas, of which there are many throughout the city. But this will get, we took a hiatus this year with our water department not physically doing one. We will probably get that back on board, as well as probably doing a contract to get another section replaced. The dump truck, one of the older vehicles in the fleet, was a deferral from this year, but we'd like to proceed with that next year and get the dump truck replaced. And the same for the backhoe was another one that was deferred last year that we would like to get back on the schedule for this year. Well 3A, which is one of our big producers, it's physically located right behind the Lynch Well complex. We need to add some chemical scrubbing treatment to that well, and that's kind of we classified it as well 3A rehab, so it'll take care of replacing. We did some temporary patching to the screen 2 years ago, I believe, when we had a rupture. So this was to bring 3A back up to 100% standard. And then next up, two separate line items, but one graphic. This is the SCADA and controls upgrade to each of our water tanks. Obviously, that's what we use to monitor the pressure throughout the city, and they're due for upgrades for the SCADA system, so we can be properly alerted and control water levels, remotely. And I think that's it. Oh, and there's the cover for the concrete pad that the street department wants to build out in the, and that would be located out in the recycle yard. I think that's it. Yep.
Thanks,
Thank
Kevin.
you. Thank you very much. Is our moderator ready for the IT department?
Sure.
Thank you.
So here we have the normal replacements that we do every year. Obviously, this year we did hold off on most of these. We had a few break fix items that we had to take care of. But generally, we're turning over a third of our desktops every year. That puts us in a position where we can, in times of need, push. But this keeps us up to date with all of our technology. We're talking about as we add more cameras to the boardwalk, which is something the police and I believe the public continue to ask for. We're quickly outstripping our available bandwidth. Currently, we're using wireless connections that beam back to the Beach Patrol. At a certain point, we're going to get to a point where we can't accommodate any more connections. So what we'd like to do is hardwire all of these cameras together with fiber, have them on a dedicated electrical circuit so that we can maintain that differently than the outlets that are being used for the Christmas lights. Lynchwell, so we are currently, we still are running on some lower bandwidth, antiquated equipment for our wireless connections over to the Lynchwell. As part of the SCADA refresh, SCADA update that's currently going on right now, we'd like to make that, go ahead and remove that antiquated equipment, replace it with more of the same equipment that we're currently using, and provide better bandwidth. Obviously, we'd also like to be able to extend our door access controls and video surveillance to that facility as well, because it's outside of town, get a little bit more visibility on it. I don't believe that anybody's really stationed there most of the time, so that would give us more eyes on And obviously, we want to do the same thing with the video surveillance at the water and wastewater and garage area. You know, the gate is left open during the day. So, you know, we should have some accounting of who goes in and comes out of that area.
Thank you, Max. And the Parks and Recreation Department, the 350,000 for Lake Zuror tot lot, that would make that 100% accessible. We would hope to, as we said last year, get grants for that project from several different sources, not our state legislatures, but grants for that specifically target the funding for this. And the Lake Zuror Accretion Restoration Project in the West End there, we've mentioned before as well. Before we would even think about doing that, we would have to do this. No, I forget what it is. It's a bathymetric design, yes.
Sharon, I have a question about the top lot. In the current fiscal year's budget, it's 100,000. And I can't remember if that, I think that was reduced from maybe an initial request of a couple of maybe 200 or something, but, or maybe 250. But now it's gone up to 350. And what I can't tell from looking at, is this the original plan that was in last year's that got reduced, or is this a souped up plan, or there's just a big difference there?
Well, this is the original plan. It doesn't have any ancillary services like fountains or.
Right, no, I know that.
You know,
right.
No. It does have a fence and trees and design costs.
But I thought the original cost that we lowered to 100 was like 250 or something. And I thought we lowered it, not having anything to do with the pandemic, because it was before all that, was I don't know whether it was cost control or whether it was trying to, I have to go back and look at my notes. And
yeah,
but
we did lower it because the commissioners at the time thought it was too costly.
Yeah.
So we removed some of the equipment, and I think there was, I'm not sure.
If I remember correctly, I believe, I don't remember the initial figure, but from my understanding, the 100,000 was just to replace the existing playground equipment that's there now. So there wouldn't be any ADA enhancements, there wouldn't be any new facilities. It would be just to replace basically what is there now. Because of some of the photos that Liz had taken out in the field, just showing significant amount you know, of rust, deterioration of the overall structure. Her concern, I think, is just the safety of the public.
Yeah, I do.
So, but the footprint has increased, is that right? If I'm looking at this?
Yeah. Yeah, is the blue the new footprint then? I was going to.
So I believe the project itself, as Liz had proposed it last year, did increase the surface, the playground. It did add, I think, maybe some of the structures over here, mostly equipment that can be used by anybody. So the plan that was proposed last year, I think, did include some additional facilities. But I think in general, it was trying to keep the same amount of space, but adding new structures.
Okay, so the blue versus the tan is not necessarily meaningful in terms of increasing the footprint of the playground.
I don't believe so. I would have to ask Liz. I think it has to deal with the material that's used. That was part of the way that the playground was made to be ADA compliant, was the actual material that would be put down on the surface to make it so wheelchairs could pass over.
I see. Okay, thank you.
And also, I seem to remember that we were going to lose some trees last year, and that that people did not like that, and so that was part of the reason it was scaled back. But maybe at the next meeting, or we could get, if she's back, we could get address all that.
Yes, we will. Yes.
Yeah, I agree, Susan. For the next meeting, if we could get a footprint of this expanded area overlaid over the existing area to see what kind, I think it's better to know up front you know, how it expands and how many trees are going to be consumed, and if there's a planting plan after the fact. Thank you.
And were we getting the folks from the Henlopen hotel condos involved? Did they were they getting involved in this, giving their ideas and appreciation?
Well, no, because it was just
it was just to replace.
It was just the replacement of the playground. There was nothing else that
Yeah.
caused them alarm.
And
So, and again, we are in need of a totally accessible playground. So this is the one that we decided, since the equipment is so bad.
Yeah. Are we able to scale this in case we don't get the grants that we're hoping for, or are we pretty confident about that?
Well, I think, you know, we're confident, but you know, we can't be 100%. So that's why we're putting the total amount in.
Okay.
But in order to get the grants, the funding has to be included.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And the last one is the Sussex County grant expenditure. Bert?
What that represents is the $30,000 grant that we receive from Sussex County every year. It was always designated as a capital item, and so as far as what that will be spent for, it's not determined for sure yet. And in fact, some of those items may not be capital items, but that's what the $30,000 is for. I can spend that.
And I will point out, the mayor and commissioners as well, I believe I missed a slide on, or including a slide for the beach patrol, but the beach patrol has proposed a Polaris vehicle as well, similar to the one shown here. It's the exact same one for the streets department. Again, theirs is past its useful life, and speaking with Art down at the shop, he recommends replacing that one this year. I believe they have a total of 2, so this would replace one of the 2.
Did I miss you mentioning replacement of a roll-off container truck to replace the 1999 Volvo?
It's in the next, I think it's in the next fiscal year, 23.
Yeah, the roll-off truck is actually in the 2023 fiscal year.
Okay, well, I note in here, you're right, it's in the 2023, but in the printout, it has it in this year.
The Munis can be a little confusing when you look at the capital outlays, because whenever a department head enters in a capital project, and then we decide to defer the project or not fund it, they have to update the quantity to 0. So that might be the case where the project's listed there, but the quantity is just reflected as 0. We don't have the ability to really go in and delete a project once it's been put in Munis.
Yeah, I see that there. There you go. Very good, very good. That's any further comments from the commissioners?
I think Public Works did a great
One
job.
I've been confused about ever since I saw this, and I talked to Sharon a little bit about it, but I'm still confused, and I'm feeling like it must be me, but I should articulate it anyway. It's, you know, we deferred 1.6 million this year due to the pandemic, and the last update we got in December, I think the October number and the December number were the same, so it was 1.6. But on page 1, maybe page 2, but on the summary sheet of the budget for this year, it's actually showing a projection for the year for capital of 5.2 million, which is only 200,000 less than the original budget. So we deferred 1.6, but the implication to me when I read this is we're going to do some of it in the next few months. So they're really only behind 200,000. But then I look at the asterisk items for next year, for the current, for 22, and I did not include the asterisk items that are every year, like the paving. I figured out that must be the system that was used. It was a combination. So I just took the ones that were for 21 that were deferred. And that adds up to something just over $1 million. So I'm confused as to why if 2022 is showing just over $1 million of deferred and we deferred 1.6, but the budget shows we're going to make up a lot of that in the current year. I'm just trying to figure out why that doesn't add up.
Well, the year-to-date is 2.274.
Yeah, I was looking at the projection.
I'm sorry?
I was looking at the projection, the 5.256.
Yes, and I agree, the projection needs to be revised.
Okay.
So, we're not, it's a valid question. I mean, you're saying, are you gonna spend another $3 million between now and the end of the year? The
Well, I'm
answer is
saying.
no.
Okay, all right. So we really will look pretty good at the end of the year then if that number's not accurate.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
So this is preliminary, this is round one.
Yeah.
You know, basically, we'll be making many different changes throughout the period.
You know, if that's the case, I mean, that $3 million is a lot. Why wouldn't we try to do some of it in, you know, between now and the end of the current fiscal year?
Because we don't know yet.
Okay.
And I'm very reluctant to do that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You go, Commissioner.
I'll give it all to you, Kevin.
Oh, I can spend it.
Well, I'd like to take a pause and poll the members of the public that asked to speak. Is Rick Perry on yet?
He is not on.
Carol Everhart indicated she had to leave early. Walter Brittingham? Are you there, Walter?
Yeah.
How about Gary Glass?
Good discussion, no comment. I enjoyed it much.
Thank you, Gary. Very good. Is there anything else anybody wants to offer? Our next meeting, of course, is the morning of our regular meeting. It'll be January 15th, Friday at 9:00 a.m. Is there anything else anybody wants to offer? Well, if not, I want to thank everybody, Bert, Kevin, Sharon, and Evan for all your efforts in this. You almost got it right the first time. I think you did an excellent job and we thank you. We'll look forward to the second session. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting at 4:37 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.